Okay. Good. So, here we are, still on the higher training of concentration. I'm hoping you're also seeing why the higher training in ethical conduct comes first, and how by doing that and really practicing good ethical conduct, then when you try to generate serenity and concentration, it's much easier. Yeah, you don't have so many distractions from, remorse about doing this and craving for doing that because you've kept your precepts. And also your mindfulness and your introspective awareness, two very important mental factors for developing concentration. You've developed them in the process of keeping ethical conduct, because you have to be mindful of your precepts, and you have to have that awareness, introspective awareness of what your body's doing, what you're speaking, what your mind's doing, okay? So it develops those qualities, and then you can take them and apply them to the development of concentration, okay? So, that sequence is important, and you can see so many people now, they want to learn to meditate and learn to concentrate. Yeah, and I was asked, I forget, something I'm doing in the future, to teach an easy meditation to people who don't know anything about meditation. So, yeah, I can teach something easy, but it's, as we're learning here, it's not just watching your breath, it's not spacing out. There's quite a bit to developing meditation, and you have to know the different kinds of meditation. Yeah, the meditation where you're developing serenity, the meditation where you're using analysis to understand something, meditations to develop renunciation, meditations to develop bodhicitta, meditations to develop wisdom, and everything that's all in between those. Yeah, so there's a lot of things to meditate on and quite a number of skills to develop. So as we go into things today, you'll see some of the other kind of qualities that meditators are developing when they practice concentration. Yeah. So hold on to your seat. How many of you have read ahead? Yeah, so you maybe are wowed by that. Okay, so we'll start, of course, visualizing the merit field and all sentient rings around us.
To the teacher endowed, transcendent destroyer, one thus gone, foe destroyer, completely and fully awakened one, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, one gone to bliss, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans to you, the Buddha endowed, transcendent destroyer, glorious conqueror, Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings and go for refuge. When, O supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paced 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then I bow. With your body's form supremely fine, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best supreme guide, to you I bow. With the supreme signs, face like the spotless moon, color like gold, to you I bow. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are not, incomparable wise one, to you I bow. Great compassionate protector, all-knowing teacher, field of merit and good qualities, vast as an ocean, to the Tathagata I bow. Through purity, freeing from attachment, through virtue, freeing from the lower realms. Unique, supreme, ultimate reality, to the Dharma that is peace I bow. Having freed themselves, showing the path to freedom too, well established in the trainings. The holy field endowed with good qualities, to the Sangha I bow. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind completely, this is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, a bubble. A dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through this merit may sentient beings attain the state of all-seeing, subdue the four faults, and be delivered from the ocean of cyclic existence perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. This ground anointed with perfume, flowers strewn Mount Meru, four lands, sun and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered to you. May all beings enjoy this pure land. Venerable holy gurus, in the space of your truth body, from billowing clouds of your wisdom and love, let fall the rain of the profound and extensive Dharma, in whatever form is suitable for subduing sentient beings. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami.
I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. So it's very easy, especially when we're studying about concentration and meditation practice, to get very self-absorbed. My Dharma practice, my good qualities, my having the right conditions, yeah, my needing silence, my needing my, I. Yeah. So you're trying to develop an internal skill, so it's quite easy to get focused on oneself and forget why we're doing this. Yeah. And so it's important to keep the end of the path in mind so that we direct our efforts in the right way. So to always remember bodhicitta, to generate it repeatedly during the day, and as much as possible to make it the motivation for everything we do, especially when we are sitting down to practice, whether we're doing analytical or stabilizing meditation, to remember why we're doing it and really place that within the very, very big, expansive view of countless sentient beings in countless places in the universe, and ourselves being willing to work for countless periods of time to attain full awakening and then to lead them, all these sentient beings, out of dukkha and to liberation and Buddhahood. So generate that motivation. So this expansive view is really quite important because it's so easy. The appearances of this life are so strong that it's so easy just to get completely involved in what is happening in our own personal life. Yeah. And that's why at the last few nights it's been very clear outside. Yeah, hopefully it will be this evening. So far it looks good. But to use those times to look in the sky, and there's so many stars up there. We can see the whole Milky Way here. And you can't even count all those stars. And yet those stars have planets and moons, and how many different types of sentient beings live there, and what are they experiencing now? And then all the places, that are beyond our ability to see with our present five senses, so different realms of existence, and so many sentient beings having such a huge variety of experiences at this one moment. Yeah. And, to really think of them and think, I'm doing what I'm doing, keeping all of them in mind because I care about them. Yeah. They're living beings like me who want happiness and not suffering. Yeah. So that if you continually generate that, it really helps your mind. You don't get caught in so much going round and around, oh, I'm so inferior and I made a big mess and nobody loves me and blah, blah, all of that. It really, puts our mind in a totally different perspective. Yeah. Okay, so what I thought to do to start out today, I know we are on page 232, but I thought I would read something at the end of this section. Yeah. Well, there's a couple of sections that helps place what we're doing in context. Okay. Yeah. So His Holiness says, in the chapters on the higher training of concentration, this is page 243 if you want to follow. In the chapters on the higher training and concentration, we have learned of the astounding abilities that sincere meditators can develop. We may wonder why they are explained to those of us who are beginners. Mm-hmm. You wonder that? Yeah. In other words, won't some people get discouraged by their own comparatively feeble concentration when they see how far they go? You know, why are they teaching me this? It's too hard. Yeah, I lose my self-confidence. Yeah. So Holiness says, well, this depends on our perspective. Learning about the capabilities of the human mind inspires us. We know that if we put the same time and effort as past meditators have, that we too can actualize abilities like theirs. Yeah. Now this is interesting, we so often go to, it's too hard, I can't do it, And His Holiness is providing just another perspective on the same subject of seeing all those qualities. Yeah. So one perspective gets us depressed and discouraged. What His Holiness is suggesting is one that gives us some confidence that we too can generate these qualities. Yeah. And when we get depressed and discouraged, we think, oh, I should have generated them already, I just learned about them last week, so I should have these qualities now, and single-pointedness, and blah, blah, blah. Okay? And His Holiness, this perspective is, it takes time. We got to practice. Why are you, judging yourself and applying unrealistic expectations? There's no need to do that. Okay? So, yeah. So won't some people get discouraged because their own comparatively feeble concentration when they see how far they have to go? Yeah. So this depends on our perspective. Learning about the capacities of the human mind inspires us. We know that if we put in the same time and effort as past meditators have, that we too can actualize abilities like theirs. Yeah, why not? Well, because I can't do anything right. Come on. Okay. In addition, knowing that there are Buddhist meditators who have already attained these abilities gives us a better idea of the Sangha that is our object of refuge. Faith and respect in them automatically arises in our minds. Yeah, so as we learn more about the qualities of the Sangha, then, of course, our refuge in them is going to change. Yeah, with respect and admiration and knowing that we too can become like them. As a side benefit, if we have the tendency towards spiritual arrogance, learning of these advanced practices checks our pride suppressing that hindrance to spiritual progress. So pride is definitely a hindrance to spiritual progress. So when you learn difficult topics, our pride kind of, goes down. Yeah. So that's very useful too. Okay, so last time, oh boy, we had such a good time, didn't we? We were talking about meditators, using the Four Truths as their object of meditation and going through the same stages as the ones who are meditating on gracefulness and peacefulness, except, with understanding of the Four Truths. So that's really going to change your mind in a way that meditating on grossness of the lower realms and peacefulness of the upper realms won't. Okay? And then we got into a little bit the way that Śrāvakas can proceed then through the Arya path. This will come more when we get to volume 6, okay, where we go into Salam, the paths and grounds. Yeah, but we talked about the simultaneous eliminators, the leapers, the gradual attainers, the gradual eliminators. Yeah, and that's when a lot of confusion came. Yeah, but if you read it and just kind of go slowly, the main point from that is that there's many different ways to practice, yeah? And there's certain steps that you have to do in order, but there's other ways that you can accomplish them, yeah, so that you may gain the same, like the leapers, they gain the same realizations, let's say, as the stream enters, but it's said that they don't attain the stream of the fruit of stream entry, because when they attain the union of serenity and insight, they have already, because they're meditating on the Four Truths, yeah, they've been able to overcome some of the Avon calling. Yeah, they've been able to overcome. Where was I? Overcome something. Yeah, they were able, because to go stream entry, to enter stream entry, you need a direct realization of emptiness. Once returner, yeah, you're still doing that same meditation, and you haven't totally eliminated anything new, but you've seriously suppressed malice and sensual desire. So if you've done that, in terms of your serenity practice, and then you realize emptiness based on that, then you don't stay, you jump over stream entry and go directly to once returner, maybe non-returner. Okay? That doesn't mean you don't have the qualities of a stream enterer. You do, but you've gone beyond that. It's kind of like, when you skip a grade in school, yeah, then you've done the work of the grade you skipped, so you say, oh, I didn't go to second grade or whatever it was. Yeah, but that doesn't mean you don't have the qualities of second grade. Yeah? Okay, so that kind of thing. And, and that because people have different dispositions, different capabilities, so there's individual ways that we go, but there also is a certain, path. You don't go from nothing to Buddhahood. There's things to do in between. Okay. So I'll read the paragraph before we stopped. So new bodhisattvas who did not previously follow the Śrāvaka path to arhatship could generate the fourth dhyana in several ways. Sharp faculty disciples who have already had an inferential realization of emptiness now make an effort to attain the concentrated mind of serenity. So those people have an inference of emptiness, but they haven't generated serenity. Yeah. So usually, they say serenity, then insight. These people have had a big part of insight, but they haven't attained insight yet because they have to attain serenity to do that. Okay. However, those who used a meditation object other than emptiness to attain serenity must also gain the correct view of emptiness and then traverse the 9 stages of sustained attention to gain serenity with emptiness as the object. Okay. So bodhisattvas seek to suppress the afflictions. Yeah. This is, not eliminating them, but suppressing them by the power of your concentration. They do that in order to increase the clarity of insight and attain the supramundane paths. As the power of their minds increases as a result of meditating on emptiness for prolonged periods of time, they approach the level of the first dhyana. Okay. Through persistent one-pointed meditation on emptiness, their minds become more stable and subtle, and they reach a level of experience whereby the afflictions of the desire realm have been suppressed. At that point, it could be said that they have reached the first dhyana. Yeah, what was their object of meditation? Emptiness. Okay. But they had to go through the 9 sustained attentions and the 7 meditative contemplations, to suppress those by having your serenity be focused on emptiness. So to determine that this is the case, in fact, that they have reached the first dhyana, what do these bodhisattvas do? So this is the experiment they do with themselves to check up. They think of an object that would normally trigger manifest attachment to the sensual pleasures of the desire realm. That's easy to do, huh? At least for us. For them, it might, they're going to have to pause and, what did I used to be attached to, and remember that. But when they do, then they check if such attachment arises in their mind, thinking of that object. Okay. If not, they confirm to themselves that they have reached the first dhyana or a state equivalent to it. They progress in a similar way, meditating on emptiness and then testing to see if the particular afflictions corresponding to each subsequent meditative absorption arise in their minds. In that way, they confirm their level of meditative absorption. Okay, so let's say they're on the 4th dhyana and they're trying to generate, the first formless meditative absorption. The absorption on infinite space. So when they think they've generated that absorption, then what have they eliminated? Well, not only all of the desire realm afflictions, not eliminated, of suppressed the desire realm afflictions, and also the various grades of afflictions that pertain to the first, second, third, and fourth dhyana. So they would think of one of those afflictions, let it arise in the mind, and then see if their mind, reacted in the same way. Yeah. So it's kind of like, how we test ourselves. Maybe you start to meditate on fortitude, and you're really practicing very strong because there's somebody that you're mad at, okay? So you calm your mind towards that person, feels good, great, Then you wait a day. Then you think of that person again, and you see if your mind gets angry again, or if you need to go back and continue to meditate on fortitude, for that situation. Okay, after bodhisattvas have attained serenity and emptiness, they must unify serenity and insight on emptiness. Yeah, so serenity is attained separately. Yeah, then insight. Then you have to unify it. You may have the view, the correct view, but then you have to unify your serenity with that correct view. Okay, so they must unify serenity and insight on emptiness. This is necessary because otherwise the stability of serenity interferes with the analysis of insight, and analysis interferes with stability. So this is an important point here, okay? Why do you have to put serenity and insight together? Serenity is mostly stabilizing meditation. Insight is mostly an analytic meditation. Why do you have to put the two together? Because it makes your mind very strong when you can put them together, especially if your object is the emptiness of inherent existence. Why does it make your mind strong? Because usually when you meditate just on serenity, you're using stabilizing meditation, that you're so into stabilizing your mind on one object that then when you try and analyze, your mind just doesn't feel like doing that. It wants to stay in the peacefulness of the stability. So it interferes with developing analytical meditation. And similarly, if you do a lot of analysis, then when you try and just focus single-pointedly, when you analyze, you're thinking of different examples and you're proving things to yourself, and, it's difficult to go from analysis of thinking about different things and investigating them to just staying single-pointedly on one object. Okay, so stability interferes with the analysis of insight, and analysis interferes with the stability of serenity. So you have to get it to a point, because you may remember that when we went through the 9 sustained attentions, at the very end, your stability generates pliancy, and there's mental pliancy and physical pliancy, and you need to have both of them, okay? So pliancy is this serviceability, an ability and ease of using your body and mind for whatever you want to use them for in your Dharma practice, okay? So what happens when you join serenity and insight, is that usually, if you've developed serenity first, your stabilizing meditation gets deeper, deeper, deeper. You go through the 9 stages, and then your stabilizing single-pointedness generates pliancy, brings forth the pliancy. When you unify serenity and insight, it's not the stability, the concentration aspect that brings the pliancy. It's analysis now brings pliancy. Okay? So analysis used to be what disturbed the stability of your serenity. Now the analysis makes your concentration even deeper, and this time it's combined with insight. Okay, yeah?
But the object needs to be emptiness.
And no, the object doesn't need to be emptiness. There's many kinds of insight. Yeah, when the insight you develop when you're going through, suppressing the different levels. Yeah. So no, it doesn't have to be. But you want to get it so that you do have it on emptiness, okay? Yeah. Okay. So we have to unify. And then here we're talking about the bodhisattvas, okay? So I'll start that paragraph again. After bodhisattvas have attained serenity on emptiness, they must unify serenity and insight on emptiness. This is necessary because otherwise the stability of serenity interferes with the ability to do the analysis required in insight. And the analysis you do in insight interferes with generating the stability you need for serenity. To harmonize the two, based on having traversed the 9 stages of sustained attention and attained serenity, they now alternate stabilizing and analytical meditation on emptiness, and again apply the 4 attentions until special pliancy is induced through the force of analysis. Okay. At that time, they attain fully qualified insight, and since emptiness was the object of their meditation, it's a wisdom of thorough discrimination of phenomena conjoined with special pliancy induced by the power of insight. The clarity of this mind is much greater than that of serenity alone, and its wisdom can penetrate emptiness more deeply because it has that analytical ability, Since the one-pointedness of serenity continues to operate with insight, the mind that is the union of serenity and insight becomes very powerful. At this point, there is the wisdom arisen from meditation, and the path of preparation is attained. So remember, we have the wisdom from hearing, from reflection or thinking, and meditation. So this is where you get the wisdom arising from meditation. And at that point, you attain the path of preparation, the second Mahayana path, and what bumps you up to that path is you now have the union of serenity and insight on emptiness. And this is an inferential understanding, Okay. When, with the 4th dhyana, bodhisattvas realize emptiness directly, they attain the path of seeing and begin to eradicate the afflictive obscurations and then the cognitive obscurations. Those who follow the Śrāvaka and solitary realizer paths they're not interested in eliminating the cognitive obscurations at that point in their practice. So they don't attain Buddhahood because those obscurations are still on the mind stream. Eradicating defilements so that they can never arise again, goes far beyond mere temporarily suppressing them on the mundane path. So when you can enter the path of seeing and have direct insight on emptiness, you first of all, the artificial, afflictions, the ones that we have generated this lifetime, are eliminated, which you couldn't do before you had the realization of emptiness, and before you had serenity and and insight combined on emptiness. Okay, when with the fourth dhyana, bodhisattvas realize emptiness directly, they attain the path of seeing and begin to eradicate the afflictive obscurations. And the bodhisattvas finish doing that at the beginning of the 8th ground, which is on the path of meditation. And then in the last 3 grounds, the 8th, 9th, and 10th, they eliminate the cognitive obscurations, which are the latencies of ignorance. Okay, so they can eradicate defilement so that they never arise again. So that's a totally different ballgame than just suppressing them through the power of concentration. So some masters and scriptures point to yet another path whereby Buddhist meditators deepen their concentration and progress to the 4th dhyana. This is by contemplating the first 2 truths, for example, the true dukkha and true origins of the desire realm as gross, and the remaining 2 truths of the desire realm, true paths and true cessations, as peaceful. It's an interesting way of combining the 2. Here, their meditation object is the 4 truths and their 16 attributes. And when you really meditate deeply on the 4 truths, then you see the true dukkha and true origins as gross, and true cessations and true paths as peaceful. So it's not just those realms themselves, okay? So now this is neat. Bodhisattvas can attain a concentration called the stream of Dharma. And they attain this on the great stage of the path of accumulation. There's 3 parts to the path of accumulation. The first part is when you have uncontrived bodhicitta. The second part is when you can no longer lose your bodhicitta. When you're just still on the first part of the path of accumulation, if you get really mad, it's easy to say, I'm not working for the benefit of this sentient being. Okay, they say that's what happened to Shariputra at one point. He got mad at somebody and lost his bodhicitta. But when you get to the second part of the path of accumulation, there's no chance of doing that. And then on the third stage, the great part of the path of accumulation, then you can gain this concentration called the stream of Dharma. Okay, so this samadhi is concomitant, that means together with, or simultaneous with, mindfulness and wisdom. And by entering it, bodhisattvas can listen to the teachings of innumerable Buddhas in various Buddha fields without ever forgetting those teachings. And it's said that when you gain the stream of Dharma, all the teachings you've ever heard in the past, you will now remember. So, I know now from one week to the next, in one ear, out the other. But when you get to this part, they say you remember them. So these bodhisattvas can even hear teachings given by a supreme emanation body, such as Shakyamuni Buddha, or any of the appearances in the mundane world of Buddhas, without needing to be physically near that Buddha. Yeah, so Buddha's in, some other pure land somewhere, and you can hear their teachings, their supreme emanation body. You can hear their teachings without having to go there. Yeah, so it saves long hours sitting on a plane. Yeah, it saves money. Okay. So when I think that must be so cool, can you imagine? I hear, this Buddha here is teaching this topic, and you just, because your concentration is so powerful, you just tune into what they're saying and hear the teaching. Yeah. Wow. So the 5th chapter of the Ornament of Clear Realizations explains that to attain this concentration, the stream of Dharma, bodhisattvas sequentially develop each meditative absorption up to the peak of samsara. So you start, at the beginning with the, your serenity, and then you go through to develop first dhyana, second dhyana, third and fourth dhyana. Yeah, the absorption on infinite space, infinite consciousness, nothingness, to the peak of samsara, the highest you can go. Yeah, and you're still in samsara, not because of weakness of concentration, but weakness of wisdom. You haven't generated the wisdom realizing emptiness yet. Yeah, and so you get born in that level, and get stuck. After meditating, so they go through, you sit down to meditate, and you go through all of them up, yeah? After meditating in each absorption in the ascending order, they descend in reverse order. So now you're at the peak of samsara, then you direct your mind to meditate at the level of infinite consciousness, of nothingness, and then infinite consciousness and infinite space, and then the 4th dhyana. Yeah, so there's all these levels of remember the sphere of consciousness that we talked about? Yeah, there's all of these levels, and so they go up, and then they go down, okay? So now when they go down, they go to the 4th dhyana, okay? So some people say that bodhisattvas attain this meditative ability. Oh, sorry, I didn't complete it. Okay, so you go up to the peak. Yeah, then you go down in a descending order, in the reverse order, to the 4th dhyana. No, down, I think, all the way to the first. Yeah, and you must go down to serenity, and then you go up again to the 4th dhyana, whereby they attain the ultimate 4th dhyana. So some people say bodhisattvas attain this meditative ability by meditating on grossness and peacefulness. Others say it may be attained with emptiness as one's meditation object. In either case, by the great stage of the path of accumulation, bodhisattvas have attained all 8 meditative absorptions. Okay, so here this is path of accumulation. You don't even necessarily have the wisdom realizing emptiness directly, okay? But you've attained all of those 8 meditative absorptions, starting with serenity up to the peak of samsara, Yeah. So that's pretty good, huh? Your mind becomes quite flexible. You can, bump it up, bump it down. Yeah. And then plus, these bodhisattvas have, you're still on the path of accumulation. You have some understanding of emptiness at least, but some of them have the inferential realization too. Okay, so causes to attain the concentration of the stream of Dharma are what we just went through, going up and down and up again. Okay, there's more causes, but to create the causes for the concentration of the stream of Dharma are hard to accumulate. We must have a union of serenity and insight that has the special ability to hear teachings from a supreme emanation body. Wow, you must have accumulated a lot of virtue to be able to hear teachings from a supreme emanation body. Yeah. In addition, we must have heard many teachings, collected a lot of merit and wisdom for a long time, purified obscurations to directly seeing Buddhas, and hearing the Dharma, purifying obscurations to directly seeing Buddhas, and hearing the Dharma from them, and gain the correct views and pure ethics. So that's all the requirements to get to the stream of Dharma. But wow, if you can do that, don't you think that would be cool to have that ability? I mean, when I think about, wow, yes. Okay. So bodhisattvas following the perfection vehicle, or the three lower tantras, action, performance, and yoga tantra, they attain serenity first, followed by insight. And insight itself is the union of serenity and insight. Okay, so here it's showing, bodhisattvas, all have bodhicitta, but how they, there's so many ways you get from there to awakening, depending on which vehicle you're practicing, with which view of emptiness you're meditating on. Okay, yeah. So bodhisattvas who enter the highest yoga tantra without having previously become an arhat may do so with the mental basis of the capable preparation. Remember, we went through that before. That's like a special kind of serenity. They do not seek to suppress the afflictions of the desire realm or attain the first dhyana, because these bodhisattvas practicing in highest yoga tantra, they employ desire on the path. So they don't want to suppress their desire completely, because as they advance through the different parts of Tantra, the different stages in Tantra, then they will use that desire as part of the path. Okay, that comes in volume 10. Stay tuned. If bodhisattvas have not already attained the unity of serenity and insight, they may use special techniques in highest yoga tantra on the basis of having either the Chittamadrina or Madhyamaka view of emptiness. Okay? So, you can practice highest yoga tantra without having the Mahayana, the Madhyamaka view. But you can't get to the path of seeing because you don't have the correct view. Yeah, correct view is seeing emptiness directly. Yeah, and to have that, you need the Madhyamaka view. Yeah, not the Chittamadrina view. Yeah, so some people, if you follow the Chittamadrina view, they also practice Tantra But at some point, they have to generate the Madhyamaka view. Okay. After meditating on emptiness during the coarse generation stage, practitioners imagine that their wisdom understanding emptiness manifests in the form of the deity and the mandala. So this is the self-generation part, where you meditate, when you're doing the sadhana, you meditate on emptiness, and then you imagine your wisdom manifesting as the deity. If you haven't realized emptiness before that, then what you do is imagine, okay? Or you do a short meditation on emptiness there. Okay, but these bodhisattvas on the course generation stage, with analytical meditation, they meditate on the clear appearance of themselves as the deity, and with stabilizing meditation, they focus on the divine dignity of being a deity who is empty of inherent existence. Okay, so when you, on the course, the course generation stage of highest yoga tantra, when you dissolve in emptiness, you manifest, your wisdom manifests as the deity. Then you develop serenity using the clear appearance of yourself as the deity, and then you focus on having what's called the divine dignity or divine identity. The literal translation is divine pride, but that's quite confusing. How do you realize emptiness and have pride? It's what it means is a kind of self-confidence, or dignity of being that, okay? So they focus on the divine dignity of being the deity who is empty of inherent existence. And so on this generation stage, they'll focus on the visualization of themselves as the deity, and then do that, and then go and meditate on divine dignity, really holding the identity, and the confidence of I am the deity. And if that starts to wane, then they go back to the, the clear appearance and stabilizing meditation on that. Okay. To remedy laxity and restlessness, they focus on a subtle drop at the upper or lower tip of the central channel, respectively. Okay, so the central channel, is a thin channel. It's not physical. Doctors don't see it when they, when they do an autopsy, they don't see the central channel there. But it's thin like a straw. And they don't ask me if it's a narrow straw or a big straw. I don't know. But it's in front of your spine, and it comes up through your neck, into your head, and then this is under your, and then curves around and the third eye area, okay? And so that's the upper tip. So you would visualize a small drop there. And then lower tip, it goes down, and to the end of the sexual organ. And so they can also develop concentration on this small drop there. Okay, you have to have a lot of power in your concentration to do that. Otherwise, your body's gonna go wacko. Okay. But when they can do this, this is the technique in highest yoga tantra. To remedy laxity and restlessness, they focus on a subtle drop at the upper or lower tip of the central channels. The course generation stage is completed when the meditator can maintain concentration on the entire mandala and its deities, so they're the central figure, and they have the mandala around them, so they have concentration, and everything's clear, themselves, the deities, and they can focus on their subtle deities on the different parts of the body. In Guhya Samaja, which is one of the highest class Tantra practices, it's a mandala of 32 deities, that are not only outside here, but they're located on your body. Okay, so you have deities that are the offering goddesses, on your sense organs, and some of the bodhisattvas are there, and then the Dharma protectors are in different, you're on your limbs and so on. They're small, and remember they're made of light, so it's not like, these big, protectors are sitting on your arms and, you're way down. They're made of light, they're small. I say this because it's amazing what our mind does when we meditate, and how we think sometimes. Okay. Okay. So you focus on the upper or lower tip, a small drop, okay? That's coarse meditation, coarse generation stage. Okay. During the subtle generation stage, yogis visualize the mandala and its deities, thinking all of them are empty of inherent existence, in that not only around them I do have the mandala, not only do you have those drops, but they can visualize the whole mandala, a teeny mandala, inside a subtle drop at the upper or lower tips of the central channel. Okay? Now, you think you can generate, just the single-pointedness and with total clarity on the whole mandala around you, let alone, at either here on a tiny drop or there at a tiny drop, and everything's clear so that you can see everything clearly? Yeah. Someday we will be able to do this, okay? So these bodhisattvas attain the union of serenity and insight by visualizing the mandala deities. Yeah, so they're in, let's say you do it here. This is a subtle drop here, okay? So visualizing the mandala deities emanating from and then reabsorbing into the mandala deities in the subtle drop. Okay, so you have the whole mandala with the deities inside this tiny drop, and then you start emanating all the, the deities that go out into the universe, and then they absorb back into, the ones that have remained there. Yeah, they emanate a duplicate that goes out and then absorbs. Okay, so emanating the deities subsumes analytical meditation. Yeah, because you're sending them all out, and you have to know where you're sending these deities to and what they look like. Their reabsorption subsumes stabilizing meditation. In this way, analytical and stabilizing meditation are done at the same time with one consciousness, not alternatively as in the perfection vehicle. Yeah, this unique quality of highest yoga tantra enables serenity and insight to be attained simultaneously, at which time the subtle generation stage is complete. What do you think? That's quite an ability, huh? Just generating yourself as the deity and developing single-pointedness on that so that your mind's not going all over the universe is hard. Yeah. But then to start visualizing, the central channel, the drops, the whole mandala inside there, everything's clear. Hi Manjushri, hi Samantabhadra, hi Avalokiteshvara, hi Kashidigarbha, all the ones that we praise in the chant. They're all there, plus more bodhisattvas, and different protectors all over your body. And all of that is now in this teeny tiny drop. And you have single pointedness on it, and you can then emanate all these deities out. Imagine them going out to benefit sentient beings, and then reabsorbing. And you remember that they're empty at the same time. Impressive, huh? This is only the first path, the path of accumulation. Okay? And then you get the stream of Dharma. And then Buddha says, oh, so you thought you were doing really well? Here's some more practice for you. Yeah. Okay. During the subtle generation stage, yogis visualize the mandala and its deities, all of them being empty of inherent existence, in a subtle drop at the upper or lower tips of the central channel. They attain the union of serenity and insight by visualizing the mandala deities emanating from and then reabsorbing into the mandala deities in this subtle drop. Emanating the deities subsumes analytical meditation. Their reabsorption subsumes stabilizing meditation. In this way, analytical and stabilizing meditation are done at the same time with one consciousness. Yeah, so this is unique to highest class Tantra. Yeah, in the perfection vehicle, there you use one consciousness to develop serenity and another one, to analyze. But here you're doing it with the same consciousness in the same meditation session. Yeah, so this is a special quality of Tantra, especially highest yoga Tantra, and this is what enables a practitioner to attain serenity and insight quickly, because you're meditating on both of them together. Okay, so this unique quality of highest yoga Tantra enables serenity and insight to be attained simultaneously, at which time the subtle generation stage is complete. And now you're getting ready to go up into the completion stage. Okay, so now there's a reflection. So, questions. What are the three realms and how do they relate to the three spheres of consciousness? Do you remember that? Yeah? Okay. This is important to know what this means. Then second, what are the principal mental factors present in each of the four dhyanas? What are their functions? And why are some of them abandoned as concentration deepens? Yeah, so some qualities you need at certain points, and then as you keep going, you release those qualities. You don't need them. You still have them, but they're not prominent in your meditation. And then the third question is, what is the difference in outcome between developing insight by contemplating grossness and peacefulness and by contemplating the aspects of the Four Truths? Big difference in outcome. Yeah, what's the main difference? Liberation. Yeah, if you meditate on the Four Truths, you can go towards liberation and awakening. Okay. So that's that section. Now we're moving to another section called the 8 liberations. Okay? So, the Buddha spoke of 8 liberations, and here the Sanskrit term is vimoksha. Yeah? And later in the paragraph, another word that's translated as liberation is vimukti, but they're different, at least in this context. Okay, so the Buddha spoke of 8 liberations, which are deep states of concentration. Here, liberation does not mean freedom from samsara, which is the meaning of vimukti, or namdrol in Tibetan, but the mind's temporary release from defilements, which is brought about by developing particular meditative skills. Okay, so the 8 liberations, they're not talking about eliminating the defilements and becoming an arhat or a Buddha. Okay, they're, it's temporarily releasing defilements, and it's brought about by doing different kinds of meditation. And now we're going to get into those different kinds of meditation you do to develop the 8 liberations. So, when we get into this whole topic here, you see that, although we usually, emphasize serenity and insight, shamatha and vipassana, there's a lot to do after you generate them. On the bodhisattva path, especially, much quicker on the the Śrāvaka solitary realizer's path. But bodhisattva path, you have to generate all these amazing qualities because you want to become an omniscient Buddha. Yeah, and so you have to really start thinking about things, perceiving things that you've never thought about or perceived, and really extending your wisdom, extending your mind to understand so much more. Okay, so first we'll do the Sanskrit tradition, how they explain the 8 liberations. You ready? So in the Sanskrit tradition, the 8 liberations are explained in the Mahavibhasa. Okay? Who wrote? Or it's an Abbey Dharma text, okay? The Mahavibhasa, that's where the Vaibhasika tradition came from. You hear Vibhasa and then Vaibhasikas. Yeah, so that's the main text that they rely on. And it's interesting because the Tibetans talk about this one as the source of the Vaibhasika tradition. But they didn't have this text, but they have it in the Chinese canon. And I think it's Venerable Thubten, or sometime, in the last century, I think him or somebody else translated it from Chinese into Tibetan. Yeah. Or somebody was doing that, and then I think it got lost. And they had to do it again, or somebody's doing it again. But it's an interesting sharing between the Tibetan and Chinese, because they don't always have the same scriptures. And sometimes they have the same scriptures, but different versions of the same scriptures. Yeah, because everything was passed down orally, and so, when you're repeating things, you may have different versions. Yeah, I've been working on this book about the King of Prayers. Yeah, and it's the at the end of the Gandavyuha Sutra, which is a sutra within the larger Avatamsaka Sutra, okay? But there's been different versions of the Gandavyuha with different number of verses and so on. Yeah, quite. Okay. So the 8 liberations are explained in the Mahavibhasa, the Mahaprajna Paramita Shastra, and the Ornament of Clear Realizations in its commentaries. Yeah. The Mahaprajna Paramita Shastra, I believe that's the main one written by Nagarjuna. That's a huge commentary on the Prajnaparamita Sutra that's in the Chinese tradition. So there is some difference in the presentations of the 8 liberations and the 9 serial absorptions in various texts. The Ornament of Clear Realizations defines these liberations as exalted knowers that are not polluted by afflictions of their own level. Okay, what does that mean? Okay, first of all, the Ornament of Clear Realizations, this is Abhisamaya Alankara, and this is the main text that after they do Dura, Low Rig, Tar Rig in the Geshe program, then they spend, how many years is it, 7 years? Yeah, 7 years on studying just this one text. Yeah, the clear ornament, the ornament for clear realizations. Okay, so here's, yeah. It defines these liberations as exalted knowers. What's an exalted knower? Okay, it is a realization of someone who has entered a path. Yeah, so you've either entered a Śrāvaka path or a Mahayana path. Yeah, so you find it from the path of accumulation up to and including Buddhahood. Yeah, that's where you find clear realizations or exalted knowers. Okay, so a realization of someone who has entered a path. Yeah, it could be a realization about emptiness or bodhicitta or, different things. Yeah, so from path accumulation to Buddhahood. And it's synonymous with the words path, ground, pristine wisdom, and clear realization. So we usually talk about, you're practicing the path, as if the path is out there and you walk along it, A path is a consciousness, yeah? It's an exalted knower. That's a realization of somebody who has entered a path, okay? And when we talk about the word ground, it's synonymous. Okay, so it's not talking about the dirt. And now these words, path, ground, all these different words are used somewhat differently in different contexts too. So these are the the definitions from Abhisamaya, but the words are in different contexts as well. Okay. So an exalted knower, a realization of somebody who has entered a path. What is a path? It's an exalted knower that is conjoined with uncontrived renunciation. Okay, so this is definitely path of accumulation. Yeah, that's the lower boundary of it. Uncontrived renunciation is already quite something. Okay, so it defines these liberations as exalted knowers that are not polluted by the afflictions of their own level. So whatever level of concentration you're at, they're not polluted by those afflictions. They are practiced in order to abandon the obscurations to absorption. Usually we just talk about two obscurations, the afflictive obscurations and the cognitive obscurations. But you may have remembered when we talked about the three jewels earlier in this book, there was a comment there about obscurations to absorption. So it's obscurations that prevent us from generating serenity and then the higher levels of absorption. Yeah. If you're a bodhisattva, you need to be able to generate all of these, from serenity up to the peak of samsara. Okay, so they practice the 8 liberations to abandon the obscurations to absorption. When practiced by bodhisattvas, the first 3 liberations are called the 3 paths of emanation. You'll see in a minute why. Because by abandoning attachment to forms, they eliminate obstacles to emanating many forms that fulfill the needs of sentient beings. So even path of accumulation, you're really a baby bodhisattva. You already develop the stream of Dharma. You can hear Supreme Nirmanakayas teach without being present. You can, remember all the teachings you've had in the past. And now you can also manifest many bodies to go out and help sentient beings. So this is the first level bodhisattva. Yeah, Arya bodhisattvas, which just starts, the third path of seeing. Arya bodhisattvas can generate the 8 liberations into supramundane paths, that means paths that have realized emptiness, although the first 7 can also be found in the continuums of non-Aryas. So we're going to go through the 8 liberations. The first 7 can be in, bodhisattvas in the path of accumulation and path of preparation. Okay, so the 8 liberations. First one, liberation of that having form viewing forms. So depending on an actual dhyana, a yogi emanates many forms while her own body remains visible to others. So you're meditating, people can see your body, and meanwhile, you are emanating many forms to go out and benefit sentient beings. The people who see your body, aren't seeing all the things you're emanating. Okay, the second liberation is that of not having form, viewing forms. So depending on an actual dhyana, and considering oneself as formless and having only the 4 mental aggregates, so a yogi feels like they don't have a body, a yogi now emanates many forms while their body is not visible to others. So they must have one of the superpowers to make their body invisible.
And it says depending on an actual dhyana, so it's a form level concentration, but they're imagining themselves to be formless?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Remember, formless doesn't necessarily always mean you're in the formless realm. It just means means you don't have form means body, you don't have a body. That's how you're meditating, okay? Then the third liberation is liberation of the attractive that eliminates obstacles. So depending on an actual dhyana, a yogi counteracts his preference to emanate beautiful forms and his dislike of emanating unattractive ones. All forms appear to him as attractive. Okay, so he's not just emanating the forms he likes, but also the forms that previously he didn't like, but now they all appear to him as attractive. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Yeah, whether lunch is burned, whether lunch is undercooked, whether lunch is what you like, whether it's not like, it appears to you as attractive. Yeah. If you're emanating food, which, if there's people who are hungry, why not emanate some food for them? You can get that through the blockades, and feed the Gazans. Okay, so the first two liberations eliminate obscurations to emanating forms, and the third eliminates the fault of liking beautiful forms and disliking unattractive ones. Okay, so there's no red carpet, there's no write-up in the newspaper about who wore what and who was the most beautiful. Yeah. Okay, so cancel the Emmys, cancel the Oscars, cancel the fashion shows. Yeah, everything appears beautiful. If I can, leave it. The third eliminates the fault of liking beautiful forms and disliking unattractive ones. These are practiced. The first three liberations are practiced by bodhisattvas on the great stage of the Mahayana path of accumulation and above. Okay? When practiced by Śrāvakas, these three liberations depend on a dhyana or a formless meditation absorption as a support and are attained by non-returners who manifest a body and by arhats who are free from afflictive obscurations and obscurations to absorption. Okay, so not all arhats generate these liberations. Okay, so the next 5 liberations are called the 5 paths of abiding happily in the present life. Okay, so liberations 4 through 7, are the liberations of infinite space, infinite consciousness, nothingness, and neither discrimination nor non-discrimination, which is another way of saying the peak of samsara. Okay. So in this context, these 4 absorptions are ones that act as a cause for a path of liberation and abide in accordance with unpolluted liberation. Unpolluted means direct realization of emptiness. They are called liberations because they are free from the manifest afflictions of their corresponding levels. Although Arya Bodhisattvas may meditate with the 4 formless absorptions, they do not take rebirth in these realms because they have exhausted the polluted karma that would cause this, and because they cannot benefit sentient beings if they're born in the formless realms, because everybody's just in their meditative state and, there's no teachings going on. Okay. So those number 4, 5, 6, 7 liberations that are named after the formless realms, liberations of infinite space, infinite consciousness, nothingness, and neither discrimination nor non-discrimination. Okay. So they act as the cause for a path and abide in accord with unpolluted liberation. Okay, then the eighth liberation is the liberation of cessation, is a meditative equipoise existing in the continuum of Āryas, meditating on emptiness by depending on both a supermundane path and a mind of the peak of samsara. Okay, so it is a consciousness in which coarse feelings and discriminations associated with the mental consciousness have ceased. By stopping these, as well as other coarse consciousnesses and mental factors, yogis stop the afflictions that arise in association with them, rendering the mind very peaceful. Through practicing in this way, meditators increase their meditative pliancy and agility and abandon the obscurations to ceasing discriminations and feelings. Okay, so, yeah, all that stuff has been suppressed. Okay, let's stop here. I think you've probably, there's still 2 more paragraphs to the end of the section, but it's a slightly different topic. Okay, questions, comments? How long does it take to develop these? It depends on you. Yeah. Yeah.
So with all of these different methods of gaining these realizations and these states of consciousness, one needs to accomplish each one of these versus it kind of depends on the mind and what you're drawn to and what you can work with. Do you have to do all of these? Is that correct?
On the Bodhisattva path, to become a Buddha who is omniscient, yes, you have to generate all of these.
You do all of them, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The order of doing, well, you can see with the liberations, there's an order. But, either you do the liberations or maybe the super knowledges first. There's probably going to be some difference in people. Yeah, but just remember, we always say, oh, the Buddha is omniscient. I said, oh, yeah, he knows everything. But then we read all these things, and we say, really? He has to learn that, and that, and that, and that, and that, and that. And why is there so much? I thought omniscient meant that you just wake up in the morning and you know everything. Yeah.
Why do we use the words like path and ground if they just mean consciousness?
Well, it's a special kind of consciousness. Yeah, it's a consciousness with a realization. Yeah, remember? Right. Definition.
Right, so it's synonymous with saying a consciousness with uncontrived renunciation, something like that.
Yeah, at least.
Okay.
At least that. Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out what the words mean. Back on page 232, when it was the statement about the meditators trying to confirm to themselves that they have reached the first dhyana or a state equivalent to it. What would a state equivalent to a dhyana that is not the dhyana be?
It must be something like almost that.
Almost that is equivalent to
It
that?
doesn't say. Yeah. It must be something similar to that. Yeah. But it doesn't say what exactly it is. I'm sure it has a name. Or there may be a few kinds of things. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not complaining about our schedule. I'm not. It really helps my mind. But an individual to attain the path of accumulation even, you wouldn't be living the regular monastery schedule. You would have to be in direct contact with a teacher a lot, right? I'm just trying to figure out, like, how does this really happen?
Yeah. My guess, yeah. I mean, I know people who have practiced to generate, I don't know if they've generated serenity, but, they've done that while attending teachings and doing other things. Although it was quite interesting. There was one couple, I knew both of them, in Dharamsala, and they were doing meditation together to generate serenity, And I remember talking with Lama Zopa one day, and, I don't know if he asked about them or whatever, but I said, so-and-so and so-and-so, they're a couple and they're meditating on serenity, doing the practice together in the same room and the sessions together. And both Rinpoche and I had the same, how, how do you do that with somebody that you're in a romantic relationship with? That looks like it would be a little bit difficult, like maybe some attachment might arise, or some anger, or maybe you compete, or, yeah. What was your question again?
At a certain point, I guess one's teacher determines that you're ready to do more
Yes.
long-term meditation.
Yes.
Years.
Yes, I think so. That, you probably have developed in your, path, doing what you can in your life, and then you're ready to go into, long-term retreat, and you check with your teacher, and and you make sure you have instructions. I have another friend who he's gotten, I don't know, a few of the on the 9 sustained attentions. He's gotten a few of them. I don't know how high, and he teaches this a lot. I know he was in retreat doing that, but it seems to me that after you gain that, you have to, keep that practice up, because if you all of a sudden dive into a very active life without your concentration, your shamatha being steady, then, well, we all know how the mind works, don't we? Okay, yeah.
I think some weeks ago you talked about how learning this material can really help us to strengthen our refuge, right? Because we reflect on the different mind states that bodhisattvas and Buddhas have to generate. Do you have other practical tips like that? Because sometimes, I look at this material and it feels like, okay, it's not going to happen this life. It's going to be a couple of eons. Or I get too, like, this is very technical knowledge, and I'm not sure how to always apply it in my practice. So it was just really helpful what you said about refuge.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I applied it. And that's the challenge, I think, when you're doing the philosophical studies, is how to apply them to your practice. The Tibetan Geshes don't always point that out. Yeah, but so this is where we have to think deeply about the Lamrim teachings. And, what if what we're learning pertains to the Lamrim teachings? And, when you think of the qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, when we're talking about, the union of serenity and insight, that surely comes up, doesn't it? Yeah. So when we know these things, then when we say, like, I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Sangha, you have some idea of what you're taking refuge in, and some genuine, like, faith and respect for people who have done that. And that's very helpful to us. Then refuge isn't just, something out floating in the sky. It's, these people who have these incredible qualities. Okay, let's dedicate. Hello, people who just arrived. Nice having you here. Yeah.
May the spiritual teachers who lead me on the sacred path, and all spiritual friends who practice it, have long life. May I pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the venerable spiritual mentors be stable, and their virtuous actions spread in the 10 directions. May the light of Lusang's teachings dispelling the darkness of the beings in the 3 worlds always increase. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niryatayami.
Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. In the snowy mountain pure light, you're the source of good and happiness, powerful Tenzin Gyaltsa Chenrezig. May you stay until samsara ends. May the deeds of explaining and practicing the Dharma, done by groups upholding the teachings and their upholders, who spread the view of dependent arising and non-violent actions in the 10 directions, and especially at Sravasti Abbey in the West flourish. So do you know who wrote that verse? Circumrinpoche, yeah.
Do we have the Tibetan for it?